Today, we're going to talk about something that almost nobody wants to admit before they try it. What actually happens if you go off-grid with no plan? Because the idea of going off-grid is powerful. It feels freeing. No bills, no dependence, total control over your life. And that idea pulls a lot of people in. But what most people underestimate is that off-grid living is not just a lifestyle change. It's a systems challenge. And if you walk into it without a plan, reality shows up fast. So let's break it down honestly, step by step, based on what really happens. At first, it feels exciting. You set up your space. Maybe you've got some solar panels, a battery, basic supplies, and a strong mindset. The first few days or even weeks can feel like an adventure. Everything is new. You're learning quickly. You're adapting. Even small wins feel big. Getting power from the sun, cooking your own food, managing your own water. There's a sense of independence, but then the cracks start to show. The first major issue most people run into is energy miscalculation. Without a plan, people almost always underestimate how much power they actually use. Devices you never thought about suddenly matter. Charging phones, running lights, powering a fridge, boiling water, it all adds up. And solar doesn't give you constant energy. So what happens? Your batteries start running low. Maybe not every day at first, but enough to make you notice. Then you hit your first stretch of bad weather, cloudy days, shorter daylight, maybe even rain. Suddenly, your system isn't keeping up. And that's when things stop feeling like an experiment and start feeling like a problem. Next comes water reality. If you don't have a proper water plan, collection, storage, purification, you quickly realize how dependent you were on it before. Water isn't optional. You need it every single day for drinking, cooking, cleaning, everything. And without a system, you're constantly thinking about where it's coming from and how much you have left. Then there's food logistics. Without planning, food becomes inconsistent. You either don't have enough storage, or you rely too much on perishables. Cooking also becomes more complicated if your energy system isn't stable. What used to be simple now depends on fuel and available power. And then something else starts creeping in: time pressure. Off-grid life without a plan is reactive. You're constantly solving problems. Instead of having a routine, you're dealing with whatever issue shows up that day. Low battery, water shortage, or equipment not working. It becomes mentally exhausting because nothing is stable. Then comes one of the biggest shocks: how much modern life was invisible support. When you lived connected to the grid, you didn't think about energy, water, waste, or supply chains. Everything just worked. Off-grid, every one of those systems becomes your responsibility. And without a plan, they don't work smoothly. They become constant concerns. This is where a lot of people hit a wall, because the lifestyle they imagined was freedom, but what they experience instead is instability. Not because off-grid living doesn't work, but because they didn't build the systems to support it. Then there's equipment failure, which hits harder when you're unprepared. Something as simple as a loose connection becomes a major issue. A broken component becomes a major issue if you don't have backups, spare parts, or the knowledge to fix it. In a planned system, failure is expected and managed. In an unplanned setup, failure feels like a crisis. And then comes the mental side. Stress builds slowly. At first, it's manageable, but over time, constant uncertainty wears you down. Not knowing if you'll have enough power tomorrow, enough water, or enough resources creates a low-level pressure that never really goes away. That's something people don't expect. The psychological load of managing everything yourself without systems in place. Now here's the important part. Not everyone fails. Some people adapt quickly. They learn fast, adjust their habits, and build systems as they go. But that process is much harder, more expensive, and more stressful than it needs to be. Because every mistake costs something: time, money, or energy. So what's the real lesson here? Going off-grid without a plan doesn't mean it's impossible. It means you choosing the hardest version of the journey. You're turning what could be a controlled transition into a reactive survival process. Instead of building systems gradually, you're forced to fix problems under pressure. And that's where most of the frustration comes from. Now compare that to a planned approach. When you plan properly, you understand your energy needs before you build your system. You size your solar and batteries realistically. You set up water storage and purification. You think about food storage and cooking methods. You build redundancy into critical systems. And most importantly, you test everything before relying on it full time. That doesn't eliminate challenges, but it turns chaos into manageable problems. So here's the honest conclusion. Going off-grid with no plan doesn't fail because the idea is wrong. It fails because the systems aren't ready. Off-grid living is not about escaping structure. It's about replacing invisible systems with ones you understand and control. And if you skip that step, you don't get freedom. You get constant problem solving. But if you build those systems properly, the experience changes completely. It becomes stable, predictable, and genuinely independent. And that's the key takeaway. Off-grid success isn't about courage or mindset alone. It's about preparation. If you want more real-world, honest breakdowns like this on off-grid living, make sure to subscribe to Off-Grid Life Tech for more videos.